Okay, so here we are at almost 3:10 PM on January 18th, 2023 for the committee meeting of the Environment Sustainability Meeting Education. And can I have a roll call, please?
And just as a reminder to all who are in attendance, this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the county's YouTube page. Calling the roll, Ms. Simon,
Here.
Ms. Stevens. Ms. Stevens is absent at the moment. Mr. Jones is absent at the moment. Mr. Shrine,
Here.
Ms. Conwell.
Present.
There is a quorum.
Thank you very much. We have minutes from November 30th. I've asked for a motion to approve those minutes.
So move.
Second. Okay, a second by Conwell. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And I just want to point out for our committee, we have, our new member is Councilwoman Yvonne Conwell, and welcome to our committee. And you'll find it pretty interesting. Today is little bit offbeat too, but so we have minutes approved, and the first matter referred to committee is 2022-0443.
Resolution number 2022-0443, awarding a total sum not to exceed $100,000 to the city of South Euclid for year 2 of the deer sterilization pilot program from the District 11 ARPA Community Grant Fund.
Thank you. So we're going to start off with the chief and Keith Benjamin, if you want to come up.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Welcome. Can you give your name, just for the...
Chief Joe Mays.
Keith Benjamin, City of
Okay, so do you want to talk a little bit about what's happening in South Euclid?
So this year, we applied for the second round of funding for a deer sterilization project. In 2020, we began a deer management program with the USDA and ODNR. And what we found is that it doesn't matter how many deer you cull, it just seems to be a never-ending cycle of doing the same thing again and again. And as someone just pointed out to me, the definition of insanity is doing the same things over and over and expecting a different result. And that's a great analogy for what we're trying to do here today, is we're trying to think outside the box, and we're working with this company, White Buffalo, doing the deer sterilization program. And I can tell you that fresh off the press is some data. From last year to this year, we saw 10 less motor vehicle accidents involving deer. So we're starting to see those numbers start to decline a little bit. Could be an anomaly, I know that, but they're going in the right direction, and that's what we're looking for.
Thank you, Chief, for all your work and support on this. Keith, do you have anything to add?
I have nothing to add at this time unless you have questions.
Okay, any questions at committee? Jack Sharon?
Yeah, just more for curiosity. So I understand the concept. We sterilize our dogs and cats all the time to help reduce the population. And somebody has to obviously physically do this surgery. And so you have to stop the deer or catch the deer or something like that, I assume?
Okay, so Chief and Keith, I'm going to ask Jay to come up from White Buffalo to talk about the process.
Yeah, okay. Sorry about that. I was just trying.
Is that okay, Chief, unless you want to chime in?
Absolutely, because we had the same questions when we were presented this
I was trying to get back to your number of 10 less fatalities, which means less theoretically deers. And so I was just trying to get to the ultimate, which is the population of deers out there.
Okay, Jay, come on up, Jason.
I'm sorry about that. I mean,
No, that's okay. No,
it's all, it seems to me it's all that same curiosity.
no, it's novel and it's
Yeah.
interesting to me at least. So, okay, you want to give your name for the record, please?
Dr. Jason Belanger, President of White Buffalo, Inc.
So do you want to answer Councilman Sharon's question about the procedure? You want to ask?
Yeah, I mean, you obviously have to catch the deer, and then you have to do some kind of surgery, I assume. Do you put it to sleep temporarily, or?
Yes.
Because I would think a moving deer would be really tough to do the surgery.
Indeed, it would be. It'd be very dangerous. So our crew goes out into the field, and we patrol our portion of South Euclid where we're doing these efforts, and we dart deer. And so we inject through a dart rifle an immobilization drug into the deer. And also in that dart is a radio transmitter. And so that deer runs off. We can track that deer through the city, find it, and then take it to a makeshift surgical suite at the town garage, and then make sure the deer gets sterilized under sterilized conditions there, using what we call an ovariectomy surgery, where we remove the ovaries.
So you're sterilizing one deer
At a time, correct.
at a time. what would, I'm trying to get to the chief's population. If you would have gulled, you would have gulled one deer at a time. How are the numbers generating a lower risk exposure between those two? I'm not against the idea, by the way. I'm just trying to understand the concept as to
Yeah.
how you got to a lower number to support the 10 less automobile accidents, which is all a good thing.
Yep, and that's a great question. And I can't speak to just 1 year's data point of 10 fewer deer. It's too soon to find out for sure. We need to look at longer-term trends. And what I can tell you from the scientific peer-reviewed literature is that with surgical sterilization in suburban areas, after 4 years, we tend to see about a 50%, just under a 50% decline in deer populations in areas like South Euclid. So that's great news that there were 10 fewer deer vehicle accidents last year, but we'll see what happens next year and the year after that. But what we'll see is trends over time.
But your surgery, based on long-term trend, is going to get to a 50% statistical less deer in the population, at least if I understood it correctly, what you just said.
Well, the goal would be to reduce the deer population so that it's within what we call carrying capacity. And the definition of that is social carrying capacity, how many deer can South Euclid residents tolerate? And then there's what we call ecological carrying capacity, which is how many deer your parks can support without damage to the trees. So you
How do you see any different number of deer to shoot a dart at it versus somebody else who's shooting some other kind of weapon? I mean, one's a non-lethal weapon, one's a lethal weapon. How do you see any, to get to that number? I mean, I'm just trying to figure out how the population of, if there's a population of 100 deer, you're going to see the same number with darts as somebody else is going to see with the gulling, I would think.
Yeah, so with culling, the effects are immediate, so deer are being killed on the spot. And
Right.
with surgical sterilization, they die through natural attrition. So they're still getting hit by cars, they're dying of old age. So when you sterilize a deer, you're putting it right back out into the environment, and they're still eating and creating risks as they would have been doing the day before.
So that didn't reduce the population to get to that 50%.
Can I interject?
Sure, yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean,
Help
you're
me-
the
help me out here. I'm
expert,
trying to help my
but I
numbers.
think
I'm a numbers
part of the
person.
answer is that in dense suburban neighborhoods, that it's unlikely that the culling, the lethal method of shooting is gonna, or sharpshooting, whatever they do, is effective in those dense neighborhoods because you can't go into people's yards.
Okay, that's-
So the difference with this, and Dr. Bollinger, you correct me, but from what I'm reading and understanding from this process is that they can get into these dense neighborhoods by non-lethal with the tranquilization darts versus going in, they can't go in with guns in my backyard. You know, I'm not going to set up some station where they're going to pick deer off in my yard, and it's unlikely. So that's the difference, is that it's more, they can get into these dense neighborhoods and sterilize that, and those deer would not otherwise be shot because they can't get into those crevices.
Okay,
And-
that logic makes sense to me. That as long as we're back to the village saying, no, I don't, some neighbors are going to say, I still don't want a dart being shot in my neighborhood. But it seems to me you do open a bigger opportunity of community that says, yeah, I have no problem with the dart, but I don't have somebody wanting an .06 using it in the backyard. Yeah, I get that, yeah, okay.
That's right, yeah. So we, some of these suburban developments are so dense, you just can't be in there with high-powered rifles to be culling deer, but you can be in there with dart rifles.
No resistance to that.
That's correct, but that being said, you could also use lethal control with dart equipment as well. However, the big problem with that is the general public tends not to like that because when you inject a drug into a deer and then euthanize it, the meat or the venison can't be used. And so that's usually a selling point for lethal controls, that the venison goes to feed the needy. But that wouldn't be the case with using darting equipment to euthanize deer. So that's why we're using surgical sterilization as novel research to try to reduce the deer population in those dense South Euclid environments, you know. And the research suggests that we're making inroads to that end.
Oh, well, I think if it can prove its way out there, I'm sure we have a lot of I've got a lot of communities in my area. I've got some great pictures of deer right in the middle of Chagrin Falls, which is not a good place to have deer walking right in the town center. So, yeah, thanks.
Councilwoman Conwell?
Through the chair, how do you know which deer has been sterilized? How do you keep track of that?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Again, how do we know the deer have been sterilized? So whenever we have a deer on the operating table, we give it some beautiful jewelry. So some big livestock ear tags that have bold numbers on it. So that identifies those deer as being sterilized. And a sub population of these deer that we treat, they also have radio or some other type of monitoring collar on them as well, so we can track their movements and also to have those what we call Judas deer lead us to other deer in the community that we could try to sterilize.
Okay, so a shooter can see that from the distance they are?
Yep,
Okay.
the ear tags are prominent. They're quite big and they're bright.
Vet performs the surgery?
Pardon?
A vet performs the
Yes,
sterilization
yes, a certified
surgery?
veterinarian licensed to practice in Ohio does the surgery.
Are they put to sleep, or how does,
The deer are anesthetized or
Anesthetized.
mobilized with the initial drugs that we use when we dart the animal, but once they're on the surgery table, the veterinarian also administers the drugs needed to get the deer through the surgery. And then once the deer is placed back out into the field, they're given a reversal drug. And so they wake up within minutes and are off on their way. So we monitor the deer to make sure they get on their feet before they leave the area.
and one more question, so when they sterilize a dog, and I'm assuming there's a different procedure for a male and a female, is that the same for the deer, and is it more expensive for one over the other?
I can't speak to domestic animal surgeries because I'm not familiar with those. There are different types of surgeries for deer. There are 3 different types. But for open populations of deer, like you have in South Euclid, the ovariectomy surgery, removing the ovaries, is the best route to go because the other techniques are less efficient.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Schron.
Do you also identify the male too? Because obviously, one male will, if addressed, will also take care of a massive population of pregnancies potentially that could take place. You've only listed that you take care of the ovaries on the female. Do you also sterilize the male too?
We do not sterilize the males for that very reason you mentioned. So one buck can impregnate dozens of females. And so that's why we target the females, because in theory, we would have to get every buck in South Euclid, and that would be nearly impossible. And plus, during different seasons, you get bucks coming and going from the city, and so we wouldn't be able to get all of those as well. So it's important to target the females. We have done vasectomy surgeries experimentally, and we do have a large project going on right now in Staten Island, New York City, where we do that. But it's in an island environment, so deer aren't swimming to the island very often. So because we have this more or less fixed pool of male deer, we're able to experiment with the surgical sterilizations using vasectomy, but out in the landscape here in South Euclid, we wouldn't be able to do that. It wouldn't be effective.
But I guess I would think that if one male is getting a number of females pregnant, why not just stop that at that source, and also why wouldn't you do both?
We can't do both because we can't capture all the males, and you'd have to get every male in the area because just one male can impregnate dozens of does.
Yeah, but if you, well, it just seems to me the math would work on that.
It wouldn't be cost efficient either. It would be astronomical in cost, well outside of what could be affordable by most municipalities.
Can
guess.
I just clarify? It's because the males roam and the females tend to stay in their area. And so the first phase of it, let me know if I'm overspeaking what we found in South Euclid on the south end is where the first phase started, is that we got the 64, how many females were captured? Do you remember?
61 were actually surgically sterilized
And
last
so
year.
that was almost the entirety of the female population on the south side of the city. So they almost were able, they can corral these females, almost all of them. But the males, because they're transitory and out there, doing the male thing, they can't get all of them. It's impossible. They would be running around and not, but the female, they're like sedentary and they nest and they tend to live in people's backyards and so they can get them all. They do reconnaissance work at the beginning, and they come in and they identify where they are, and then when it's time to do the darts, they know where they are, and they'll get almost 100% of them. And this phase 2 now, we're going into the north side and checking to see if there's any immigrants coming in to the south side. And so we just started last night, and I was at the surgery last night. It was, how many, I was there, there were 4. Did you guys?
We had 10 surgeries
Oh, my
last night.
gosh.
Yeah.
So you've had a late night?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Is there an unintended consequence that would develop, though? So, okay, you've gotten all the females, and they're going to start dying off through natural causes. Is there then a natural migration of other females to go in there? Because, wow, this is now a target-rich environment for me to eating somebody's rhododendron. Have you seen that migration takes place also from Euclid, from East Cleveland, places like that move into, because you're no longer, you now have had all 63 of these are going to die off at some point along the way through natural causes.
Yeah, that's correct, and thank you for that question. So the very basis of this research, the very basis that allows us to even consider surgical sterilization with females right from the get-go is the fact that female deer have fixed home ranges, and they tend to be smaller. But they're not like air molecules. You wave, it's not even if you kill a bunch of deer through culling, the female deer don't come in right away. It's not like they just move in the next year. It takes time. And there's something called the rose petal hypothesis in the scientific journals that explains this, but what happens is a doe keeps its home range and it tends not to leave that area. It has 2 fawns and it sets up overlapping home range, and so on and so on and so on. So deer do encroach into the area, but it happens over generations, over years. Does that make sense? Clear as mud?
Making sense is a different concept for my understanding nature, but I did understand what you explained. But it seems to me that if this were to work in South Euclid, then it would be a natural gravitation to move into Mayfield, Moreland Hills, Solon, all these other places where we got the same issues out there, because we can't shoot guns in these populations. I'm fascinated by the concept.
Absolutely, the potential's there. When a community has the option of sharpshooting or culling, they tend to go that route based on cost alone. It's about half the price of surgical sterilization. So, and then the meat gets donated to kitchens to help feed the needy. And so you do have these dense suburban environments where the surgical sterilization is really being targeted. And it really is for those progressive urban municipalities that are able to have the means to do it.
So it might be that the answer is a combination of the two in certain areas. It sounds like at some point where there's plenty of land to be able to do it. If it's half the cost, maybe that's where I got my venison that I had at Edwin's on this week on Friday night, as a matter of fact. Yeah. Thank you.
So Dr. Bollinger, in terms of cost, so what you found is that there's upfront cost that's more expensive. You front load things, but over time it's less, compared to the lethal methods that you have to keep repeating over and over. Cities have to keep coming back, and is that correct?
That's correct, and I have 2 points to that. One, I was under the notion that you wanted me to share some numbers with you. So last year, the average cost of sterilization was about $960. And to put that into perspective, when you look at the different studies, they go up to over $2,000 per deer, depending on the circumstances, the number of deer, et cetera. So in terms of what I've seen in my career, because I've been involved with surgical sterilizations for decades at this point, going back to when I was at Cornell University as their deer program coordinator and doing this experiment for the first time on campus lands, typically we see $1,200 to $1,500 or more per deer, but as techniques become perfected and more efficient, we can get those costs down in some places. So, and then the second part of that question is, it does get less expensive because the problem never goes away. You'll always be challenged by deer over time coming in from the outskirts of the city. And the idea is that up front, you sterilize a lot of deer, most, and last year for us, you're right, it was almost 100%. We based on our estimate, it was 97%. You go through the maintenance phase year after year. So we're here during year 2. We're back in the original surgical sterilization zone from last year. And we're seeing a lot of tagged deer, very, very few untagged deer. I think we found 3 last night with all of our efforts, so that's a good thing. That's a good thing that we're not finding additional deer that are coming in, but you'll always have maintenance, albeit at a lower cost from year to year.
Thank you. And just a couple more questions. So the pregnancy, how many fawns per year would one of these does have typically if we weren't sterilizing?
Yeah, typically it would be 2 a year on average. In really good habitat, sometimes a first year fawn can give birth to 1. In really good habitat, sometimes you see 3, but generally not more than 3. On average, it's 2.
Last night, most I saw were pregnant, so.
They were?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
I mean, I was only there for 4 of them, and I think at least 2 to 3 were pregnant. So that eliminates six more.
But you're sterilizing the deer, you're not going to perform any other surgeries in regards to the fawn, are you?
Well,
She's still gonna be
the
pregnant.
pregnancy, I'll let you speak to this. They're just tiny, they absorb into the uterus. You can speak to that, but they're not even formed yet.
Oh.
The-
It's early on.
The surgery is safe. This time of year, the fetuses are very small and they do not get in the way of the surgery.
But will they still carry to term at that point in time?
Or some will, some won't, but there's another surgery called tubal ligation, which you have to do before they get pregnant. Otherwise, they'll give birth at term. But with the ovariectomy, if you catch them early, then it gets reabsorbed back into the body.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much. And there's one other, we're the first in Northeast Ohio to have this pilot, and I'm really proud to be able to showcase what's possible for the neighborhoods that we represent. One other, only other areas is Clifton, Cincinnati, that started this back 5 years ago, that it's a different kind of terrain, but they're one of the first, they're the first in Ohio. So, and that's going really, really well.
And I just wanted to give one other metric, and I'm all set unless you have any other questions. Based on our estimates, our deer population, density of deer per square mile in our surgical sterilization last year was estimated to be around 59. And you can take these with a grain of salt because can be some variance on either side of that estimate. But I just wanted to put that into perspective that most urban and suburban communities that are interested in protecting their forests and their parkland aim for 15 to 20 deer per square mile. So just to give you a benchmark by which is judged by a lot of communities in the current science. So we have a ways to go to get the population lower, is my point.
Thank you.
Is there any reason why you couldn't coordinate the two? That were places where they do have enough outside open forest and to coordinate with what you're doing to do the gulling and the sterilization?
Yes.
Could those be coordinated? Could that be another pilot that would run and build upon this?
Chief Mays.
Oh, you are? Oh, okay.
We are actually doing that. That's part of what's unique with our program now is we are culling deer.
Oh, okay.
With the ODNR and USDA, so they have 6 to 8 sites where it's safe to cull deer.
Sure. Okay.
And our White Buffalo is targeting those areas where it's not safe to do so.
Oh, even a better answer. Okay, I love it, yeah.
Okay,
My communities are probably similar to that, in that they're going to have the ability to do both.
South Euclid is unique. They have this hybrid method, which is, it's can't really effectively do the sterilization on the north end, but where I live, unfortunately, but on the south end is where we started. It's more dense. So we're able to do the sterilization south, move a little north, but the rest of the north, they're in their site.
Sorry about that. Can you write something up so that we could actually share it with the other 58 communities? It actually falls into an element, I just saw Paul walk in the door, that it falls into an element of economic development, that you could justify that if you're losing your forest, that this would be a way for communities to retain that. Thanks.
Thank you. And we've seen the surveys in every community. It's about 50%. People who don't care, and it's like, go ahead and use lethal. And then 50% is like, no, find a better way. And it's consistent. So it's a win-win to be able to do this. And it's just a matter of finding the right match with the community. So, yeah, we can get something written up and get it out there. Thank you. And
Thank you.
I'll see you tonight. Yes.
You can be the next surgery?
I take notes. I get the data collected.
Good for you,
on the
good for you,
deer.
okay. Do you want a motion on this thing, or do you?
I
you
do.
You can move
So,
yourself?
so yeah, 3 readings. So if you can make a motion.
So move?
To move this to the next full council meeting for second reading, moved by Councilman Tron, second by
Second.
Conwell. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much for coming in. I'll see you later. Bye. Okay, next item, 2023-0008.
Resolution number 2023-0008, authorizing an amendment to contract number 652 with Youth Opportunities Unlimited for operation of the Youth Resource Center for comprehensive case management and employment program, employment education, and training services for young adults in connection with the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act.
Good afternoon. Hi.
Good afternoon. My name is Rachel Benders. I am from the Office of Workforce Development. My business here today is to request that the committee authorize this amendment to Contract 652, which is for Youth Opportunities Unlimited and their operation of the Young Adult Resource Center, which is part of the Comprehensive Case Management and Employment Program, which is operated out of Ohio Means Jobs, Cleveland, Cuyahoga, utilizing WIOA dollars, WIOA and TANF dollars. We request that this contract be extended to June 30th, 2023, and that additional funds in the amount of $850,000 be authorized. And we also respectfully request the suspension of the second reading. With me today, we have Laura Chalker. She is our new Deputy Director and CFO of Ohio Means Jobs, Cleveland, Cuyahoga. Also, Craig Dorn, President and CEO of Youth Opportunities Unlimited, is also here to answer any more specific questions you may have.
Questions? I just have a question about this amendment. Is this something that, do you go out to bid after this?
Yes, so
period of
this is,
time?
this contract was procured through the RFP process. That contract will end at the end of June. We are in the process of getting our RFP approved and published so that bidding on our CCMEP services will be open to the public in the coming weeks.
I apologize. Where is the Youth Resource Center? Is that the Carnegie
Yes,
location?
1910
Just
Carnegie in the
just-
garden, in the garden level.
Oh, okay.
Yes, in the garden level. And so the YRC, they serve 1,000 unique people a year through the process of providing information, resources, referrals for services for youth and young adults regarding education, career, and any other social assistance they might need, get them pointed in the right direction, whether it might be applying for benefits, securing housing, information about education or career opportunities.
Good, thank you. I don't have questions, and I don't have a problem, referring this out under suspension, second reading. So I can make that motion unless, do you want to come up at all and introduce yourself, that'd be great, if you don't mind.
My name is Laura Chalker, and I'm the new Deputy Director, CFO for Ohio Means Jobs, Cleveland, Cuyahoga County. So I'm in week 5, but I'm really glad to be here.
Welcome,
So
yeah, we
thank you.
appreciate it. So you'll
Yes.
be coming through this committee and
I
be
will.
able to.
That's why I wanted to make sure I was here and you get to know my face, and look forward to what we do.
So the next time you'll come in is, we have an educational assistance program where the county dollars go in to close gap for training. It's part of our just pure county dollars that come through. So we're going to, usually once a year, we get a recap. So we'll be happy to have you come in and talk about 2022.
Sure,
So,
I'd be happy to do that.
okay, great.
Okay.
All right, thanks so much.
Yes, thank you.
Congrats on your position. So I'll make this
Second.
Okay, so the motion is that this matter 008 be referred to the next full council meeting with a recommendation of second reading passage, or second passage on second reading. I can't even talk. Second by Sharon, all in favor? Aye. Okay, is that right? Okay, thank you. I think that's it. No miscellaneous business, we'll adjourn.